Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
Cole Harrison always believed honesty was the foundation of any real relationship. At 39, he spent his days teaching history to high schoolers, trying to instill in them not just knowledge of the past, but also values like integrity and character. He was the kind of teacher who showed up early, stayed late to help struggling students, and started debate clubs because he genuinely believed in the power of education. His passion for teaching was obvious to everyone, and he never cared about the modest paycheck. For Cole, the reward was in the kids' eyes when they finally got a tough concept. Amanda, his wife of 10 years, took a different path. At 36, she was a marketing manager at a tech startup that had exploded in growth over the last 3 years. What began as a small educational software company had become a major player in the market, with millions in investment and aggressive expansion plans. Amanda thrived in that environment. Her income had tripled, she traveled constantly for conferences, attended high-stakes investor meetings, and wore designer clothes that cost more than Cole's monthly salary. He always took pride in her achievements, celebrating every promotion like it was their shared victory. After all, they were a team, weren't they? Max, their 8-year-old son, was the center of Cole's world. The boy had his father's curious eyes and his mother's determination. Every morning, Cole made Max's breakfast, checked his backpack, helped with homework, and walked him to school. Amanda rarely took part in these routines. She left early for meetings or came home late from trips, always saying she was building a better future for the family. Cole never questioned it, taking on more household responsibilities to make sure Max felt loved and cared for. Over the last 6 months, something had changed. Amanda was even more absent, not just physically, but emotionally. When she was home, she spent hours locked in her office on private video calls. When Cole tried to talk about her day, he got short, irritated replies. Her messages went unanswered for hours. And when he expressed concern or asked for more presence in Max's life, Amanda accused him of being insecure, controlling, and not understanding the demands of a serious corporate career. There was a tone of contempt in her voice when she said, "serious corporate career," like his job didn't matter. He swallowed the hurt, telling himself it was just her work stress. The school's annual charity gala was one of the events Cole looked forward to most each year. Organized to raise money for the arts program, the event brought together teachers, parents, and community members for an evening of celebration. Cole had spent months on the organizing committee, securing donations, coordinating the silent auction, and selling tickets in person. Amanda had agreed to come as his date, though she made it clear she'd rather be doing anything else. On the night of the event, Amanda came down the stairs wearing a deep blue silk dress Cole had never seen before. She looked beautiful, but there was a coldness in her eyes when she looked at him in his simple suit. On the way to the ballroom, Amanda complained about having to spend the night with boring teachers and unambitious suburban parents. Cole tried to ignore the comments, focusing on the final details of the party. The ballroom was decorated with quiet elegance, soft lighting, donated floral arrangements, and white tablecloths creating a warm atmosphere. Cole greeted dozens of people, introduced Amanda to colleagues, and tried to draw her into conversations. But she was visibly impatient, constantly checking her phone, sighing loudly, and drinking red wine at an alarming pace. Around 9:30, during the principal's speech about the importance of the arts, Amanda whispered to Cole that the event was small town and she couldn't take it anymore. Cole asked her to at least pretend to be interested, it mattered to him. Amanda rolled her eyes, finished her third glass of wine in one go, and stood up abruptly, drawing attention from several people. She mumbled something about needing fresh air and walked out of the ballroom with slightly unsteady steps. Cole waited, his worry growing. 5 minutes passed, then 10, then 15. He excused himself and went to look for her. He checked the bathrooms, the front lobby, the side garden, but Amanda was nowhere. A bad feeling led him to the parking lot. The night was cold, and the lot was dimly lit. Cole walked between the cars, searching for their sedan. He was about to give up when he heard a muffled sound coming from the darker area where 2 school buses were parked. Cole followed the noise, his heart pounding. And then he saw it. Amanda was pressed against the side of a black sedan, her back arched, head thrown back. A man in a crisp suit was leaning over her, his hands sliding under her blue silk dress, moving up her thighs. They were kissing with desperate hunger, an intimacy that made it clear this wasn't the first time. Amanda moaned softly, fingers tangled in the man's hair. The man whispered something into her ear, and Amanda laughed, that soft, intimate laugh she used to save for Cole years ago. Cole felt like the ground had vanished beneath him. His first instinct was to scream, run over, and drag the man off his wife. But something deeper, more calculated, took over. It was the same part of his mind that organized historical evidence, the part that taught his students to document sources. His hands trembled as he pulled his phone from his pocket, but he held it steady enough to record a video. 30 seconds. Clear faces. Unmistakable actions. All documented. When Cole put the phone away, he took a deep breath and walked until he was only 3 meters away. His voice, when it came, was terrifyingly calm. Amanda. She turned so fast she nearly lost her balance in her heels. Her eyes, still half-lidded from desire, widened in pure terror when she recognized her husband. The man in the suit pulled away like he'd been burned, frantically adjusting his tie. For a moment, all 3 froze. Cole, Amanda started, her voice thick, trying to step closer. It's not what you think. I drank too much, I wasn't thinking. It's not what I think. Cole interrupted, and there was something deadly in his tone that made Amanda step back. He raised the phone, the screen showing a paused frame of the most incriminating moment. I recorded everything, Amanda. 30 seconds of you and this. He looked at the man with pure contempt, whoever he is, in a position that makes it clear this wasn't a momentary mistake. How many times? How many times have you done this while I was home taking care of our son? The man in the suit mumbled something about not knowing they were still together and practically ran to his car, speeding out of the parking lot in seconds. Cole didn't even look at him. His eyes were locked on Amanda, who was now crying, her makeup streaking down her face. Cole, please, let me explain, she begged, reaching for his arm. It was a terrible mistake. I was drunk, confused. It doesn't mean anything. Cole stepped back, avoiding her touch like it was poison. It doesn't mean anything? You think I'm stupid, Amanda? You think I didn't notice the changes, the lies, the suspicious business trips? I just didn't want to believe it because I really thought we'd built something real. He shook his head, feeling the anger give way to deep sadness. When we get home, you'll sleep in the guest room. Tomorrow morning, I want you to pack and leave. Monday, I'm filing for divorce. You can't do this. Amanda shouted, her drunken voice shrill. I have rights. Max is my son too. Max, Cole repeated, and his voice cracked for the first time. You remember Max? The boy you barely see because you're always working? Or doing this? He pointed to the space where she'd been. Do you really think I'm going to let my son be around someone so irresponsible? Amanda kept crying and trying to argue, but Cole had already turned. He called an Uber for Amanda through the app and sent the details to her phone. Then, with a self-control he didn't know he had, Cole walked back into the gala, put on a smile, and finished the night greeting donors. No one noticed anything was wrong. The weekend was a tense haze. Amanda stayed locked in the guest room, leaving only to try and talk to Cole, who ignored her completely. Max, sensing something was wrong, became quiet and worried. Cole assured his son everything was fine, that mom and dad were just having a hard conversation, but that he would always be loved. In the early hours of Sunday, while Amanda finally slept after hours of crying, Cole went to the shared home office and turned on the laptop they both used. What he found was worse than he imagined. The email folder was hidden inside a subfolder labeled 2024 Reports. Hundreds of messages exchanged with Gavin Mercer, Amanda's vice president at the startup. The messages started 8 months ago, professional at first, then flirtatious, quickly turning explicit. There were photos, detailed plans for hotel rendezvous, conversations about whole weekends spent together while Cole believed she was at conferences. But what truly broke Cole's heart were the messages where Amanda mocked him. "My husband's a failed teacher who thinks he's changing the world by teaching spoiled teenagers," she'd written. "He makes a pittance and has zero ambition. Sometimes I wonder why I'm still married to him." In another message, when Gavin asked why she didn't just file for divorce, Amanda replied, "Convenience, mostly. And because of the kid. Divorce is complicated. The kid." She'd called her own son, the kid. Cole felt rage boil inside him, but he channeled it. He created a folder and copied all the relevant emails. He took screenshots of revealing conversations. He downloaded bank statements and highlighted suspicious transactions. $3,000 at a luxury spa Amanda claimed was a meditation retreat, but the emails revealed was a weekend with Gavin. $500 on expensive lingerie. Recurring payments to hotels. On Monday morning, Cole was in the office of Patricia Brennan, a divorce lawyer specializing in high-conflict cases. Patricia was a woman in her 50s, gray hair pulled into a severe bun, eyes that had seen every variation of human betrayal. Cole laid everything out: the parking lot video, printed emails, highlighted bank statements, and the messages where Amanda referred to Max as an inconvenience. Patricia flipped through the materials in silence, her professional expression giving way to genuine outrage. "Mr. Harrison," she said finally, removing her reading glasses, "I rarely see a case this well documented from the start. Your instinct to record that video and preserve this evidence was absolutely right. Based on what you've shown me, especially the derogatory messages about your child and the misuse of marital funds to support an affair, I'm confident we can secure primary physical custody of Max. Your wife has demonstrated emotional neglect and inappropriate behavior that a judge will take very seriously. I just want to protect my son," Cole said, and his voice finally broke. "He doesn't deserve to grow up thinking this kind of behavior is normal. He doesn't deserve a mother who calls him an inconvenience. And he won't have to," Patricia assured, already sketching out the legal strategy. "We'll file for divorce today. We'll include all this evidence. We'll request primary physical custody, with Amanda having only supervised visitation at first. And we'll demand repayment of the marital funds she diverted." The following weeks were a blur of legal documents and hearings. Amanda hired her own lawyer, who argued she deserved shared custody of Max and half of all assets. But at the first custody hearing, when Patricia presented the video, the emails, and especially the messages where Amanda called Max the kid, the judge's expression changed dramatically. "Mrs. Harrison," the judge said in a cold tone, "the evidence presented here shows a pattern of behavior that deeply concerns me. Not only was there marital infidelity, but there's clear evidence of emotional neglect toward the child and misuse of family financial resources. Written messages from you referring to your own child in such a degrading way are extremely troubling." Amanda cried. Her lawyer tried to argue the messages were taken out of context, that she was under stress, that she loved her son deeply. But the damage was done. The judge ordered a full psychological evaluation of Amanda before considering any unsupervised visitation and granted Cole temporary primary physical custody, with Amanda allowed only 2 hours of supervised visitation on Sundays. The asset division was equally favorable to Cole. His lawyer argued Amanda had diverted over $10,000 in marital funds over 8 months. The judge agreed and ordered her to repay half that amount, plus relinquish any claim to the home's furniture and belongings. But the deepest revenge came in a way Cole never deliberately planned. Cole had always been respected in the school community. And when people asked about the divorce, Cole didn't spread malicious gossip. He simply told the truth, calmly and with dignity. "We're divorcing because I discovered Amanda was having an affair with an executive at her company," he'd say, without exaggeration, just facts. "I caught her in a compromising situation at the school gala. I'm focusing on taking care of Max now." The truth, told simply and directly, was more powerful than any rumor. The community rallied around him. And the news spread. One of the parents at the meeting where Cole mentioned the divorce was Daniel Chen, a venture capitalist who had invested heavily in the startup where Amanda and Gavin worked. Daniel was concerned. Affairs between executives created a toxic workplace and exposed the company to potential lawsuits. He raised his concerns with the board, and a discreet internal investigation was launched. What the investigation revealed was worse than Daniel imagined. Gavin had used company funds to pay for dinners and hotels he claimed were networking expenses, but which were actually dates with Amanda. There was a clear conflict of interest. He was Amanda's direct superior and had influenced her recent promotion. And Gavin was married, his wife Lauren being the daughter of another major investor in the startup. When Lauren found out about the affair, through an anonymous tip that gave her specific details, she was devastated and furious. She immediately hired a lawyer and started her own contentious divorce. Her father, enraged not just by the betrayal of his daughter but by the stain on the company's reputation, pressured the board to act. 3 months after the parking lot discovery, both Amanda and Gavin were fired. The company publicly cited organizational restructuring, but everyone knew the truth. Gavin lost not just his job, but half his assets in his divorce with Lauren, and his reputation in the industry was permanently damaged. Amanda, without her high-paying job, had to look for work at smaller companies. She ended up accepting a much lower position as a marketing coordinator, earning less than a third of what she'd made before. In the months that followed, Cole focused all his energy on Max. He continued being the same dedicated teacher, but now with an added depth of empathy for students from broken homes. He started therapy, not just to process the betrayal, but to make sure he carried no resentment that might affect Max. Amanda's supervised visits with Max were painful. The boy, initially confused and hurt by his mother's sudden absence, gradually adjusted to the new reality. Amanda tried to make up for it with expensive gifts, but Max seemed more interested in quality time. Over time, and after the psychological evaluation, the judge allowed unsupervised weekend visits every other week. But the damage to the mother-son bond was done. A year after that night in the parking lot, Cole was in a very different place. The house, now just his, felt smaller but warmer. He'd turned the old office into a playroom for Max, filled with books, puzzles, and a small table where they did homework together. The walls were covered with Max's drawings, photos of the two of them on outings, evidence of a life being rebuilt. Cole had also started dating again. There was a librarian at the school, Sarah, a gentle 37-year-old who was divorced and had a daughter the same age as Max. They started as friends, grabbing coffee during breaks. Slowly, the friendship deepened. Sarah met Max at a careful, slow pace, always respecting that the boy had gone through trauma. And Max, to Cole's surprise, genuinely liked her. 2 years after the discovery, Cole was sitting on the bleachers of the soccer field, watching Max play in his first official youth game. The boy had grown taller, more confident, and the smile that lit up his face when he looked up at the stands and saw his dad cheering for him was the most beautiful thing Cole had ever seen. Sarah sat beside him, her hand finding his naturally. Across the field, Cole saw Amanda arrive to watch the second half of the game. She looked different, thinner, wearing simpler clothes, with a permanent sadness in her eyes. She waved at Max, who waved back politely before turning his attention back to the game. Cole felt a pang of something, not quite pity, but maybe sadness for the person Amanda could have been if she'd made different choices. But he didn't feel anger. Not anymore. The anger had been worn away by time, by therapy, and most of all by the love he saw growing in Max every day. Cole had made peace with the fact that Amanda would never be the wife he thought he'd married, nor the mother Max deserved. But her betrayal, as painful as it had been, had freed him from a life of falsehood. 3 years after that night, Cole was grilling in the backyard for a small group of friends. Max ran across the lawn with Sarah's daughter and schoolmates, his laughter filling the air. Sarah was in the kitchen preparing salads, humming softly. Fellow teachers chatted animatedly. It was an ordinary scene, almost mundane, but to Cole, it was everything. He never crossed paths with Amanda again outside of brief exchanges during Max's visits. He heard through mutual acquaintances that she'd tried to rebuild her life, that she was in therapy, that maybe she was beginning to understand what she'd lost. Part of him hoped she found some kind of peace, not for her sake, but for Max's. But Cole didn't need updates on Amanda's life. He'd learned the most important lesson he could teach his students, that integrity isn't something you do when it's easy, but what you choose when it's hard. That the truth always comes out. And that rebuilding your life with dignity, surrounded by genuine love, isn't just the best revenge, it's the only revenge that truly matters. That summer afternoon, as the sun began to set, Cole looked around at the people he loved, at the life he'd built, and felt gratitude. Not for the betrayal, never that, but for the strength he'd discovered in himself, for the ability to choose dignity over bitterness, and for the chance to show Max that it's possible to rise out of any darkness and still believe in love, honesty, and the fundamental goodness of the right people. The grill was ready, friends gathered around the table, and Max asked to say the blessing they always did. With his clear voice, he thanked them for the food, for family, for friends, and especially for his dad who was always there. Cole felt his eyes sting, but they were tears of the good kind. And in that moment, Cole Harrison knew with absolute certainty that he'd done everything right. That protecting Max, seeking the truth, holding on to his integrity even when it would have been easier to react with violence or bitterness, had been worth every hard moment. Because in the end, it's not the betrayal that defines a person, but how they choose to rise after. And Cole had chosen to rise with dignity, with love, and with the certainty that living authentically is the greatest victory anyone can ever achieve. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.